Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks for joining us tonight. As always, a lot to talk about and debate. Like, should the Penguins make a trade now that Jake Guentzel is likely done for the season? And if so, who would be a target of their interest? We'll get into that. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, we got a lot of NFL, specifically the Steelers in the offseason. What must they do? And here is your panel left to right on your television screen tonight. We have Mark Kaboly, outstanding beat writer for the Steelers on The Athletic. Ron Cook from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the Cook and Joe Show 93.7 The Fan in the middle. And then Tim Benz from Trib Live and DVE pregame show with regard to Steelers football. So, guys, we'll get right into it. And Ron Cook, I'll start with you on this one. Give me the biggest area of concern or need for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving into this offseason. What do they have to do and address #1 on your book?
Well, we only have a half-hour show, right? I mean, it might be
top priority.
hard to get all that. I mean, you got to keep Bud Dupree, I guess. They have nothing else at outside linebacker opposite Watt. He strikes me as being the perfect candidate for a one-year tag. I know it's $16 million, but I don't see what choice they have. That, to me, is a #1 priority, but I can go tight end, I can go running back. Who knows about the quarterback situation? I think Dupree's their #1. As Tomlin said, he's their priority.
Yes, let's go with Bud Dupree on defense, and the need is either sign him long-term or franchise him. It isn't replace him because I don't think they can do it effectively enough. So it's keep Bud Dupree. Offensively, the first position out of Ron's mouth is the one that I would go to. That's tight end. Because if you can't get tight end, I don't know what you replace that guy with, since we don't know what's going to happen with Vanette or with Vance McDonald in terms of their availability. Injury-wise, their effectiveness when they're there. I would hope that if you can't do anything with running back, James Conner will find his form of last year, but I'm not exactly banking on that either.
Well, definitely Bud Dupree. I mean, that's a no-brainer, as both of you guys said. So on the flip side of that, I'd have to say a little bit of offensive line on the offensive side. Not really redoing it all, but it needs to be remade a little bit. There's too many 30-year-old guys there, and history has proven once you get into your 30s or as a unit, 150 years old as a 5-group unit, you start to decline, and they were just over that number. So whether it's signing Matt Filer to the restricted free agent tender, moving him inside, moving Foster out, bringing Banner in, having Chuksa for finally. They need some new, younger people on that offensive line. I don't know if that necessarily means going out and getting somebody, but keeping some of the guys you have. And even if that means B.J. Finney, which is highly unlikely, in my opinion, he'll be back. I think you have to work with that offensive line, then everything works off of that.
Would you agree, Mark, that it's happened 1 year quicker than what they were hoping for, what they would have liked with the limited picks that they have and what they can do in free agency this year?
See, it's tough for me to say that because, I mean, the quarterback position really hindered that offensive line, and you saw it through some of the protections and some of the other stuff where Roethlisberger can come up there and dictate some stuff that when you have that new offensive line coach, might not have been able to do. So it's really hard to say that they were totally out of realm and they need totally replaced. I think Ben coming back helps that offensive line a ton, but I think it does definitely need tweaks.
Let's talk about Ben Roethlisberger. Now you brought him up, 8-8 with 3 ugly losses to end the year, one of the worst offensive showings in franchise history without Ben Roethlisberger. He comes back, that'll solve a lot of the problems. But Ron, how do you look at his situation, knowing that they're not going to know ideally, even in March when they owe him a lot of money and a bonus, just how effective he can be, and how much would you look into a veteran backup quarterback?
Oh, I think you have to have a veteran backup quarterback. I mean, Tomlin said the other day that he's comfortable with Rudolph as a backup. I don't think Duck's going to be in the league. I don't think he's going to take another snap in the league. And I think you got to know a little sooner than March for Ben. I mean, Tomlin talked about February, a doctor's appointment. There's no guarantee he comes back. The last time I talked to him was after the Buffalo game, and he said, I'm ahead of schedule, but that's still not going out there and unleashing the ball. I don't think there's a guarantee he comes back, and that's why you definitely need, or at least the old Ben, that's why you definitely need a backup, but you're not going to pay a big-time backup. You got to get kind of the second tier who's got to be better than Duck.
Yeah, if they could acquire a Ryan Fitzpatrick type, a Teddy Bridgewater type, somebody like that you can start and say, at least if you have a defense like the one you had this year, he can get you to 9 or 10 wins instead of barely getting you to 8.
Tim, can they afford either one of those guys?
I don't know.
That's the thing.
Yeah, well,
can they? Bridgewater for sure. How do they afford it?
Here's another thing.
I mean, I'd love to have them both, but I don't know that they can afford
Okay,
them.
well, the question was, should they look into it? And I'm saying they should look into it. And if they do look into it and they do get a guy, then I don't know the purpose of keeping Mason Rudolph as the third quarterback, because the way they talked about Paxton Lynch and how humanly impossible it is to have the third quarterback play if need be because of how limited his reps are, what's the point then of keeping Mason Rudolph?
Yeah, I don't think they have any choice with Roethlisberger. They just have to go under the assumption that he's going to be all right. I mean, there's nothing you can do in March or in April in the draft or in free agency to be able to, ensure yourself that you're going to have a quarterback in August. You're just hoping, Ben, you got money tied to him. You got the offensive line tied to him. You got the offensive coordinator tied to him. You just hope he comes back, and you're just going to have to deal with it. If he doesn't, it's Mason Rudolph. So that's why Tomlin came out and gave a strong support for Mason Rudolph at number 2, because I don't think there's going to be any movement in quarterback in the offseason.
Tim, let me ask you about another area of potential need, and that would be adding on to the coaching staff. Mike Tomlin indicated indirectly there could be some change there. I kind of wonder what that change might be, but do you feel if Mason Rudolph is the backup that they need to bring in a quarterback coach to help out Randy Fichtner?
Yes, and whoever the third quarterback is, because of what we just talked about with Ben. I mean, I don't think you're getting the quarterback coach for Ben Roethlisberger, because I don't know how much he listens to the quarterback coach, a new guy that comes along onto the staff. I think you're doing it for Rudolph and whoever the perceptibly younger quarterback is, especially if it's Duck again. So, yeah, I would get a quarterback coach. Why not? If they have to open up space along the coaching staff, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who directly he was talking about. I don't know if Tom Bradley wants to go back to the college ranks and they have Terrell Austin there to just be the defensive backs coach. Maybe they want a second offensive line coach with Sean Surratt. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. Maybe it's another wide receivers coach because of the situation they've got there with an interim coach in Ray Sherman. Those all could be possibilities.
What do they have to? They don't have to replace any. They could just add. They could add 5 coaches if they're willing to pay them. There's not a limit on how many coaches you can have. I've always thought it's one of the most ridiculous things ever that they don't have a quarterbacks coach. There's enough for Randy Fichtner to do running the offense, not to have a quarterback coach. How many quality control coaches do they have on both sides of the ball? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, Mark. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, the quality control coaches don't get paid as much as the regular coaches. And you said they can go out and just go ahead and pay whoever they want. Steelers don't invest a ton of money into their coaching
Well, maybe
staff
they should.
when it comes to around the league. They have one of the smallest coaching staffs in the league. And I think if you're looking at somebody, and people don't remember this, John Mitchell is still on the staff as a defensive line coach or assistant head coach. He takes one of those positions, and that's why there's one position missing here, whether it was outside linebacker coach or quarterback coach. He's taken one of those positions. So
You're telling me in a multi-billion-dollar business, they can't afford to go out and hire a quarterbacks coach unless they get rid of somebody? That makes no sense to me.
No, they
if
should
it
be
helps
able
your
to.
team, right?
They should be able to, yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're going to have a lot of other stuff to worry about. Everyone talks about run game. Real quick, I have a minute here left. Ron, back to you on this one to start and go around the horn real quick. James Conner is back. He has a year left on the contract. Can they afford to draft or bring in another quarterback with him coming back? And I would just say play and show me that you can play and stay healthy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't give him a new deal. They can't depend on him. I love the kid. I love the way he plays, but he's not on the field enough to really help them. So you don't give him a new contract. Is Benny Snell football going to be the answer? Maybe we'll see him develop, or else you're going to have to get someone, if not this year, then next year.
Yeah, if they don't get a tight end with that second-round pick or they don't trade up into the first, I would look strongly to see if the second or third best running back is on the board then at that point, and maybe invest there, because even with the way Tomlin talked about James Conner during the post-game press conference, the Tuesday press conference comments that he had after the loss to the Ravens, he seems to be tired of him not being available as well.
And one thing about the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, they've been pretty consistent. If you can't get on the field, it doesn't matter who you are, you're not coming back. So let him ride out this last year. If he can stay healthy, then see what you do after that. But absolutely not, you don't sign him right now.
So is Tom Brady going to come back? And if so, where? Very interesting thing
Veteran backup for Ben Roethlisberger, Bob.
We'll talk about that coming up next in our next segment. But in the meantime, if you'd like to enjoy the game from the comfort of your couch, I'm sure a lot of you do, you're going to love this next opportunity. With Expressway at Cochran.com, you can buy a car from your couch as well. Expressway lets you complete some, most, or all of the buying process online so you can spend less time or no time at all in the showroom. That's right, they even offer home delivery at no extra charge to you. So buy a car your way with Expressway at Cochran.com. Tom Brady, where does he end up next? The number one Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by number one Cochran, Go One Better, and by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield.